Okay, we just had PPI numbers, and the PPI numbers were way worse than expected. And so now the markets are pretty much responding to that. And you can see that with Bitcoin over here. We actually wicked down to 117,000. And you can see the bubbles have turned from totally green to totally red. But guys, don't fall for this, because it's a trap. And it was designed. I could have told you earlier this morning that there was going to be a trap sometime today to actually flush out the market. Don't fall for this, because it doesn't change anything. There's no way that Powell does not reduce interest rates in September. And so within a day or two, or maybe even less, the markets are going to carry on running again. Please don't fall for this trap. And I'll show you all the data later. What you should be focusing on is a few big things that actually landed up happening through the night, right? Now, one of those things that landed up happening through the night is that actually Bitcoin hit a new all-time high, as you can see here in the charts. Bitcoin hit a new all-time high. On this exchange, the all-time high was about 124,500. That's what you should be focusing on. Bitcoin again in price discovery. The other thing that you should be focusing on is Solana and why it's actually moving, because Solana actually started moving over here, and it actually hit about $210. I'm going to show you exactly why Solana is moving, because I think I've got some really juicy inside information. And I think that once I share it with you guys, I may be kicked out of a whole lot of trading groups that I'm in, but you know what, who cares? At least you guys will have the information. So today's a really big show. Thank you, Chris, about my jumper. It's a really big show. I think I've got so much to actually talk about today. Let's get going, guys. We don't have time. I could have told you this morning that there's going to be some kind of trap to flush people out of the markets. We're not going to be the people that actually get flushed out of the markets. That I guarantee you. It's going to be everyone else that gets flushed out of the markets, because this is the trap. You know what the trap is here? The bad PPI numbers aren't going to make any difference in the world whatsoever to whether or not the rate cuts are going to happen in September. The jobs numbers were a miss. Were revised downwards. The inflation numbers were better than expected. And so there's no way that this PPI is going to get Powell not to reduce rates in September, which is, by the way, what the markets are starting to tell you now. Like this week, from wherever we were before the PPI numbers, from this 121,000, all the way down below the 118,000. Guys, that is a trap. It is meant to flush out people and to reset the RSIs before we continue with the next move up, right? Because after you get a move up, just like the move up that we currently had, the RSIs get really high. And what happens when you have a trap like this, look what it's done. It's brought the RSIs back down to below neutral, you see? So we're starting to get slightly back into the green territory. Please don't fall for this. And again, I'm just going to look at this, even though it really makes no difference. In my mind, there's 100% chance that the Fed reduces interest rates at the next FOMC meeting in September. And actually, when I looked earlier, there was, okay, so now it's not 100. I mean, get this. This is like how dumb they think we are. There's a 5.5% chance that Powell keeps them the same. Okay, if you're in this 5.5% of people, I can't help you. That's where we draw the line, and you have to stop watching our show, and I can't really add any more value to you. This is a trap. Don't worry about it. It's a little RSI flash. It's a little liquidation flash before the next leg up. And the next leg up is going to happen, and it's going to happen really soon. You need to know that before we start the show. Someone said it's a trap. It's real data. It's not a trap. It's real data. It is. Do you really believe, honestly, do you really believe that now with the bad PPI numbers, look, they were quite bad. I'll give you that. It was a complete miss. It's 0.9 instead of 0.2 and 3.7 on core PPI instead of 2.9 on core PPI. Really bad miss. And maybe some of it was about tariffs. And later on today, you'll start seeing all the tariff headlines. Oh, you see, the tariffs did actually cause PPI. Guys, with all the backlash that the Fed has been receiving, with 2 Fed governors passing a dissent in the last FOMC meeting, with a revised job numbers, which left egg on everyone's face in the government, with everything else, do you really believe Powell doesn't cut rates? If you do me a favor, drop me a DM and let's take a personal bet one-on-one. Just drop me a DM and just name exactly how much you want to bet. I'm in. Whatever the number is, just drop your number and you and I can just take that bet. All right, so that's the PPI numbers out of the way. I hope that didn't shock anyone. We should talk about the more important things that actually happened last night. And there was a lot of things that happened last night, which were much, much, much more important. But before we do, I need to remind you that you need to obliterate the like button, because that helps us get distribution. And we're very, very, very fast becoming the #1 show in crypto again and again and again. So I need you guys to do that. Help me with the like button. I've got so much alpha filtre. I've also got inside information. And that inside information is going to get me kicked off a lot of trading groups. But I'm going to share it with you anyway, because I just think that you guys need to know about it. And it's specifically about Solana and why Solana actually started moving last night. I'm going to break it down for you. I'm going to show you exactly what the inside information is. And I didn't have it when I made the Solana show a few days ago. Admittedly, that was a complete, well, not fluke, but we kind of knew Solana would start running, which is why we did a Solana show. Someone says, I loved your outfits on Sheldon's show. So great. That's actually what his assistant dressed in this morning. I just stole it from him. We did make that Solana show. One of our researchers, who actually has a show on Banter, Alessandro, actually has a show on Banter. He came up with doing a Solana show that day, and we caught it spot on. And that's before we had the inside information. Today I'm going to share the actual inside information with you guys so that you guys can see it. All right. So let's talk about the good things. Forget, now that we've got PPI out the way, and we know that we ain't the ones who are going to get flashed out. We know that whenever you have a crazy run up in the markets, what you also have is you have these flashes that like shake out the over leverage chance. And that's actually quite healthy. That's actually, believe it or not, that's quite healthy. You don't want to move up. What you want is you want to move up, you want to correct slightly. You want to move up, you want to correct slightly. You want to move up, you want to correct slightly. That is how you want the cycle to actually happen. And that's exactly what we got. The good thing is that we got a whole lot of other things last night. First thing is Bitcoin in price discovery again. 124,500, new Bitcoin all-time high. Absolutely, absolutely like amazing to watch. At one point in time, Bitcoin was actually the 5th biggest company or largest asset on the planet. It surpassed Google, which was very, very, very good. It's back down again because the price just went down, but was nice to see for a very short period of time. After that, there's Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, and then we're going for gold. So then it's like we literally, we say we're going for gold, but we're really going for gold. Second thing that happened didn't happen last night is ETH all-time high. We didn't get the ETH all-time high. And at now in hindsight, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. Why? Because for ETH, this is a very, very, very big level. This is the equivalent of Bitcoin trying to break that 69,000 level. It's the previous cycle all-time high. That's a very, very, very significant level. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that on the ETH chart, that is the most significant level. And so to think that we're going to break that level and go into price discovery on the first tap is not right. It's not going to happen, right? It's just not something that's going to happen. And so right now, what we need to remember is that this is like the toughest level that ETH has to break. And when it does break it, it's going into price discovery. And as we know from when Bitcoin went into price discovery, and I actually get the chart first. I think it's quite interesting. Can't look at it like on that chart. When you do actually break the previous cycle all-time high, which you can kind of say actually happened properly here, right? Here. Look at how quickly and how aggressively we moved up, right? And that was like there. That's the previous all-time high. That was the breakout. That was the post-election breakout. So I'm expecting the same thing with ETH. I'm expecting the same veracity with ETH. But in order to get to that veracity, we have to tap it a few times and actually break that level quite convincingly. It's quite similar with Pump. Like with Pump again, this 0.04 level, that's the ICO investor entry level. Those guys, they ain't going to be shaken out with one tap. So again, I see this again. Tap, 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 tap. When we break through, it's going to be the real breakthrough, and that is going to take us to Valhalla. So I'm watching both of these charts. I'm very, very, very bullish. In fact, I'm so bullish. I'm going to show you one indicator that I'm actually relying on that shows that everything is going exactly according to plan, and that we're not anywhere near the top of the cycle or where we should be. Okay, so to understand the inside information around Solana and why we had this move yesterday on Solana, I want to walk you through just a little bit of background around the thesis for why we did what we did. So it starts off like this, right? It starts off like this. Solana, as you know, let's maybe even take one further step back. In order for a token to succeed in this cycle's narrative, the token needs to have three things, right? It needs to have usage, well, technology and usage. It needs to have an ETF and it needs to have strong treasury companies. You agree with me, right? Bitcoin has usage, has a strong ETF, and has treasury companies. And as you know, as a result, Bitcoin started to fly. ETH didn't have strong treasury companies. It had an ETF and it didn't have much usage. And then all of a sudden it started to fly. And then all of a sudden something happened and it started to fly. What happened? Well, we got strong ETF, we got strong treasury companies, and we got strong usage. Primarily, the usage was driven by base, but that is ETH usage. And so in this cycle, if you want to have the trifecta, strong ETF, strong treasury company, strong chart movement. With ETH again, strong ETF, strong treasury company. You've got Batman and Superman, Tom Lee and Joe Lubin. And that's the strong treasury company. And then you've got, of course, strong usage, right? And that is the formula. It's the ultimate trifecta, if you want to call it that. I don't know if you guys ever played like a bet where you get the trifecta, but this is the ultimate trifecta if you want to get good results in this cycle. So now I want to talk a little bit about Solana, right? So like Solana doesn't have an ETF yet. And I mean, if you look at it, all the big companies, barring BlackRock, it does have an ETF, but it's not a real ETF. It's like one of those, it's not a real ETF. BlackRock hasn't applied for Solana ETF, but there are 7 other companies that have applied for Solana ETF, right? And what we know is that these ETFs may be approved, let's say at the latest at the end of October, but they could actually be approved way before, right? So Jeff Seifert from Bloomberg says, inclined to say not happening just yet, but there's plenty of movement so far. Who knows if they'd assume that they'd approve ETH ETF staking and SOL ETFs at the same time. So there is a small chance that in 3 days, on the 17th of August, very small chance, we will actually get a Solana ETF approved. Either way, we do know that a real ETF will get approved. And our suspicion is that the ETF, when it's approved, is going to be approved with staking. So it's not only is there going to be an ETF, but it's going to be an ETF that is actually approved with staking. And that's going to be a little bit of a game changer, not only for Solana, but actually for all the Solana and all the ecosystem plays. So with that in mind, we know that Sol's going to have 1 box ticked or 2 boxes ticked because it definitely has the tech and it definitely has, or it's definitely going to get an ETF. And I think whereas the ETF is not going to be as big as the Bitcoin and ETH ETFs. And the reason why it's not that is because BlackRock, which is by far the biggest ETF, the reason why they aren't going for it is because they're kind of saying, look, if we're going to go with Bitcoin and then ETH and then Sol, where do we draw the line in terms of where we actually, where do we draw the line in terms of all the ETFs we actually apply for? Like, do we apply for a Tron ETF and an XRP ETF? And so BlackRock have kind of said, look, for now, it's Bitcoin and ETH. And those are the 2 big plays that BlackRock are actually playing. So Bitcoin and ETH had all 3 boxes ticked: usage, treasury companies, ETFs. Sol had usage, didn't have treasury companies, didn't have an ETF. ETF on the way, could happen in the next 3 days. If it doesn't happen in the next 3 days, it definitely happens by the end of October. I cannot see them declining a Sol ETF. The next thing they need a strong treasury company. Now look, again, Sol do have a treasury company or a few treasury companies, but they're not like the big hitters. Just like ETH had a few treasury companies, but the big hitting treasury companies were when Tom Lee came onto the scene and when Joe Lubin came onto the scene, right? So they do have 𝗥𝗍𝗄, and they do have a couple of others, but I mean, 𝗥𝗍𝗄 owned 2 million Sol, which is not like, it's not like a big number in the big scheme of things, right? And they don't have like these 2 figures, and I call them Batman and Robin. I've heard some people call them 𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Like, I don't know what you want to call them, but ultimately these are the guys that are actually driving the narrative, right? And so as this tweet says, Solana should go past 300 quickly if they had a TradFi character that could aggressively accumulate cash for buying Sol, right? So if they had this one character or these couple of characters, and these characters were on CNBC all the time, and they were like well-spoken and had a good reputation and lots of credibility, then Solana would get the 3rd piece in the trifecta. And when it does that, it's actually really going to blow, right? So this is where I've got a little bit of inside information for you guys, right? So you remember that there was supposed to be a Sol treasury company that was launched. And that Sol treasury company was going to be like a new $1 billion treasury company. It's like supposed to be much bigger than any other treasury company out there. And that treasury company was actually supposed to be led by Joe McCann. You remember that, right? And Joe McCann is exactly that character. He's American, he's TradFi, he had a very, very, very good reputation. He had a whole lot of momentum. You remember all of that, right? And then something happened, right? And what happened was this guy called SOLBigBrain posted this article or this tweet that said, I'm never investing in a liquid fund again. How the fuck am I down 10 million through the first half of the year? And what he alluded to was the fact that he had invested in Joe McCann's company, in Asymmetry, in the liquid trading fund, and he was down 78% on his investment year to date, right? You remember that. We actually spoke about it when it happened. But the long story short is that this exposed the fact that Joe McCann's fund, the liquid fund, was down 78% this year. And largely, that was as a result of the fact that Joe took big bets on Sol and ETH turned against Sol, and this is what happened. And if you remember, Joe was actually on our show. And when Joe came onto our show, he said, I'm long Sol and I'm short ETH. And that was the exact opposite of what actually happened. And clearly what happened was he never exited in time, and his liquid fund went down 78%. Now, the suspicious part here is that, I don't know if it's suspicious, but let's just maybe say that it's not suspicious, right? And what happened here was that whilst he was raising a $1 billion Sol treasury fund, this hit the market and went completely viral. In fact, so viral that I actually said to my guys internally, I said, look, someone's trying to sabotage Joe McCann. It doesn't matter if they are or not, or weren't trying to sabotage him. The reality is the fund did perform really badly. And as a result, what happened was they landed up shutting the liquid fund. And I read this article, but it was, I knew about it actually before. He's winding down the asymmetric liquid fund after the fund was accused of losing massive value this year. Okay, so that's pretty much what happened. This isn't a total surprise, blah blah blah. And that's pretty much what landed up happening. And so what happened after that was that this vehicle that Joe McCann was supposed to lead to raise $1 billion to go and buy Sol on the open market and to become the de facto Sol treasury company was called off. What we heard is that they couldn't raise the $1 billion or anywhere near the $1 billion. And that's because after all the bad publicity that Joe McCann got, people lost a lot of faith in Joe, and they pretty much said, look, we're not putting $1 billion behind this entity because actually we don't think that Joe is as good as we thought he was before the news became public. I don't know if you can say public, but before it became viral, that Joe's fund lost 78% of the thing. Now, here's where it gets pretty interesting, right? So there could have been some sabotage here of Joe and his fund. And there are rumors and there was speculation. And again, this part I can't confirm officially live, but there are rumors and there was speculation that this SOLBigBrain guy was invested in the existing 𝗥𝗬𝗫 Sol treasury company. And so he published this in a tweet, because this is actually, in inverted commas, probably sensitive information about a fund that should not be published publicly. Obviously, I think legally they're allowed to do it, otherwise he wouldn't have done it. And so there is a new screenshot which shows that Joe McCann is suggesting that SOLBigBrain's post about his fund 80% loss caused the 1 billion digital asset treasury to fall through, linking it to BigBrain's investment in 𝗥𝗚𝗫 treasury. SOLBigBrain denied any sabotage. He said he had soft committed 20 million before seeing the losses, and his 𝗥𝗚𝗫 stake is minor compared to his Sol holding. So he denies this, but Joe thinks in some place he got sabotaged. SOLBigBrain says, let's get this out of the way. Any insinuation that I posted the previous screenshot showing a liquid fund I was down $10 million in was a sabotage. Was to sabotage the potential DAT he was raising for because I'm an investor in 𝗕𝗥𝗬𝗍 is absolutely false and complete bullshit. I actually want more SOL DATs, more institutional buying. Solana is better for my SOL position. My position in 𝗕𝗥𝗬𝗍 compared to my SOL position is minor. Even if I had committed 20 million to his DAT prior to getting quarterly statement, which I received on July 17th, that ultimately changed my mind. Why did I post a screenshot then? Well, he says, because I was pretty flabbergasted. I was pissed off. We are in his fund with two entities, 5 million each. So I had statements showing we were 10 million down for the first half of the year, and the market hadn't been that bad by June 31. Down $20 million in 6 months would trigger anybody. He posted stuff asking why I hadn't posted his poor performance previously, and I just happened to post it when he was raising for a digital asset treasury company. It's really not that deep. Don't look at my statements, my brother. Just happened to mention how my brother just mentioned to happen how bad this was. I'm in 40 plus funds, some down, some up. None are as down as 80% in a bullish market. Down 80% in a deep bear market is acceptable, but obviously in a bull market, it's not that acceptable. If you think there was some grand conspiracy to my tweet, you give me too much credit. I had no idea that the post would blow up. Didn't even mention the fund. Why did the DAT fall through? No idea. I was hoping it would raise and add more for Solana and add more market pressure to Solana. I don't hate Joe. Pissed off. He lost me money, but beyond that, I don't wish him any ill harm. So that's the first part of the story. The first part of the story is Joe McCann was supposed to raise the $1 billion Solana treasury vehicle. He didn't because allegedly he got sabotaged by SOLBigBrain, or maybe he got sabotaged by SOLBigBrain. And you know what? As a result, investors didn't want to back Joe McCann. Cool. How do I feel about this? Well, the reality is, look, guys, Joe's been on our show multiple times. He's a very, very, very astute investor. He's a very gung-ho investor. In other words, when he gets it right, he gets it really right. And when he gets it wrong, he gets it really wrong. And in this case, I think, and I don't have the facts, but I think that he was probably very long SOL and very short ETH, as he said on our show. I get that because he said it on our show. And that is what happened to his liquid fund. Now, to think that investors are going to throw $1 billion at you when, you know, whether or not it went public and whether or not it went viral on social media is one thing. But to think that investors are going to give you another $1 billion after you've just lost 80% in another fund, I guess that is something that is a little bit far-fetched. I'll be honest. On top of that, to be honest, we were going to invest in Joe's fund. And when I saw that, you know, I was also having doubts as to whether I wanted to invest in that fund. So that's the first part of it. But now let's go back to the fact that maybe he was actually sabotaged. Maybe there was some conspiracy going in here. And I want to show you the next part of the story here. So Joe publishes this tweet or this message in one of the Telegram groups. And he says, look, you'll see that there'll be a new digital asset treasury company announced shortly. The only thing I recommend when finding out who's behind it is following the money. And what he says here is he says there's going to be one VC, one trading firm, and one asset manager. And they want to be the ultimate, the big Solana digital asset treasury company. Here's where it gets juicy. Now, I can't show you screenshots because if I show you the screenshots, it's going to give away where I got my information from. Joe wants to expose all of this. And I reached out to him this morning and I said, Joe, let's do a podcast, and hopefully he accepts and we do this podcast sooner rather than later and we get this all out. But in the meantime, what you need to do is you need to follow the money and you need to try and understand who's going to be the one VC, who's going to be the one trading firm, and who's going to be the one asset manager. And then you will understand, one, whether Joe actually got sabotaged, but two, you'll understand exactly how much demand there's actually going to be for SOL. Now look. Again, I can't show you the screenshots because if I do, they'll know where I got it from, and that's just going to get everybody into trouble. And I don't want to get everybody into trouble. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to protect you guys and to give you guys the information early, even if it's sometimes maybe considered inside information. So the way I understand it and I could be wrong. There's a tiny chance that I'm wrong. Tiny chance that I'm wrong. There's one VC, one trading firm, and one asset manager. And they want to wear the crown for the biggest Solana digital asset treasury company. He also says, and I wonder if I've actually got this post. I don't know if I got this post, but actually he says in a post, he says, the same treasury, the same company, the same VC. Guys, researchers, if you got that screenshot where he says the same VC that is behind this one, actually I approached them and they turned me down. Let me see if I can get you that piece of information. Let me see if I can get you that piece of information, right? I wonder if I've actually got a screenshot that I can share without giving away too many sources. Just 1 second. Hold on. There must be something here. Hold on a second. Hold on. Here it is. Yeah, I've got a few things. I'm trying to make sure there's no names in it. Just got to make sure there's no names. Okay, so blah blah blah. That's one. Hold on. I've got to find you these screenshots because in the one screenshot, what he actually says is what he actually alludes to is he alludes to exactly who's doing this. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can actually get it first without. Okay, so he says here, and this I know who these people are. So he says, look, and there's another Solana digital asset treasury company with huge names in the industry. One VC. Interesting that VC passed on my deal because they didn't see any value to treasury companies. I know who that VC is, guys. So, who's the VC? Who's the asset manager? And who's the treasury company? From the information that I've got, and I can't 100% confirm that it's legit, but from the information that I've got, the VC is Multicoin Capital. They've got the biggest Solana position in the world. And if anybody was going to back a digital asset treasury company around Solana, they'd be the guys. The trading company is the trading company that was actually behind Solana's initial success and actually behind Luna as well, which is Jump. And the asset management company is Galaxy. And so I think what's going on here is I think that very, very, very soon we'll see a race for a new digital asset treasury company, which is going to be some kind of combination with Multicoin, Galaxy, and somehow Jump is also going to actually be involved. And that is potentially the information that's going to come out into the market. All right, so what does this mean for Solana? Because okay, we've now uncovered the whole story. Now let's talk about what does this actually mean for Solana. Look, Solana doesn't care about the politics, and Solana doesn't care about Joe McCann's fund, and Solana doesn't care about anything. Solana only cares whether or not there's buyers, and if they manage to raise this, and they pretty much will, there's going to be a new buyer in the market, and finally, we're going to get a real digital asset company that is looking after, that is going to be buying Solana. And when that actually lands up happening, what I think is going to happen is, because the charts are actually telling this to us, right? Remember that there's that whole adage that says, show me the charts and I'll tell you the news. If you look at the charts and you look at the Solana RSI here on the weekly, what you can see is on the weekly, the Solana RSI is pretty much in this block over here. And every time that this RSI has been in that block, we've landed up having a bounce, right? And right now we're in that block and we landed up having a bounce. What I think is going to happen is I think there's going to be a magical combination of two things that is about to happen. I think the ETF is going to get approved. I'd love to say it gets approved in 3 days, but if it doesn't, anytime between 3 days and 1 month and 2 weeks from now, or 2 months and 2 weeks from now, the ETF definitely gets approved. After the ETF gets approved, or before the ETF gets approved, we get the Solana Treasury Company, the real Solana Treasury Company, the one that's raising $1 billion from TradFi to put into Solana. Well, some of it will be TradFi, but some of it will be some of the Solana that Jump have got, Galaxy have got, and Jump and Multicoin have got. When that happens, I think that that's going to put a real treasury company on the map, and that's going to start really, really, really buying Solana. And then you know how the story goes from there, right? You know how the story goes, right? All right, so that is the Solana inside information story. I hope you enjoyed it. I wanted to share more screenshots, but just, yeah, if I share more screenshots than I've already shared, then people are going to know exactly where I got this thing from. And yeah, I don't want to do that. But I think I've given you the information, and I think you can kind of see that this makes sense. I reached out to Joe this morning. It was his night, our morning. I'm trying to get him on the show. Maybe we'll get him on tomorrow, and then he can unravel this whole thing for us. It would be fucking amazing if we could do that. I must say, I feel really bad for him as a human, because I think he's a very, very, very good guy. And I think when you play the game with that level of aggression and that level of conviction, sometimes your bets actually go against you. And I think he's got a very, very, very good track record. And I guess the one fund worked against him. And I think what happens now is how he actually recovers from it. That's the bottom line here. All right. Let's take a look at the markets. I'm not too scared. I do want to show you one other thing, but I'm not too scared of the markets. This is great. As I said to you, good RSI reset so that we can move on to the next thing. I do believe that by the end of the weekend, ETH does break its all-time high. And I do believe that Solana carries on going again. You can see the markets already stabilizing. Again, don't fall for this trap, because it's a trap. There is going to be a rate cut. There is going to be a rate cut in September. There's not going to be a double rate cut, but there is actually going to be a rate cut in September. I wanted to show you another thing. Which I think is quite important for you guys to see, because again, I don't think that many people have noticed this or realized this. And I think that this is another bit of alpha which you're probably getting here first. So I don't know if you noticed this week that there was a major move yesterday by OKB, which is the OKX token. And I think what that reminds us is that the exchange tokens, BNB, OKX, KuCoin, all of those exchange tokens, they have a lot of value, right? And people that held these exchange tokens, or even like if you took for example, a BitGet, like if you held BitGet for the last year, you've got a 4x return on your capital. What we know is that these exchange tokens have a very, very, very big product market fit, right? And so there is an exchange token that is actually flying under the radar. And the reason why I thought I'd bring it to you now is the following, right? So you know that there's a major exchange battle for Europe. Like the frontier, the final frontier that all the exchanges are going to is actually Europe, right? And the one like big regulated exchange in Europe is an exchange called Bitpanda. I don't know if you guys have been following this exchange or know this exchange, but it is one of the most regulated exchanges in Europe. Yeah, I'll actually quickly just click on their page for you. One of the most regulated exchanges. They've got the highest leverage in Europe at the moment, which is actually under license, believe it or not. And so they have an exchange token, but not many people know that it's an exchange token. And the reason why not many people know that it's an exchange token is because they didn't position it as like, they didn't name it the same as the exchange token. They named it something like much bigger. And they named this token Vision. So the exchange token, that exchange token is actually called Vision. It does everything that like BNB does, right? It's going to have a chain. It's a discount token. They buy and burn tokens using the exchange revenue. It does everything that the exchange tokens do, but they just haven't positioned it around the exchange token because they've gone for like a much bigger vision, which is like your Web3 super token. So I think there may be an opportunity here. Now, full disclosure, these guys are sponsoring some of our channels. So I'm not speaking about them because they sponsor us. I'm speaking about them because of this. Because I saw this yesterday and I was like, holy shit. Remember the exchange tokens. You can't discount the exchange tokens. This is the Bitpanda exchange token. It's called Vision. Okay, that's what it is. Have a look at it. It's Vision. It's got under $1 billion fully diluted valuation for the biggest regulated exchange in Europe. So I think it's a very, very, very good one to actually keep our eyes on. Is there anything else? I mean, yeah, again, guys, don't get shaken out by this crap. Honestly, like, do not get shaken out by this crap. This is like par for the course. Has Frontrunners bought it already? No. I am going to drop 2 coins in Frontrunners after the show. I've just been so busy today that I haven't had a chance to do it. So for those of you who are part of Frontrunners, actually there's another hour left in yesterday's special. So if you sign up for Frontrunners for the next hour only though, because I'm paying this out of my own money, and you sign up for either PineX or Blowfin and you deposit money, because if you're a bot, I can't help you. Well, I can help you, but I don't want to help you. Then I'll give you back $150 into your account immediately in cash. Literally, it will be reflected into your account. So That's for another hour only. If you can ask Johnny to just keep that link, but in 1 hour, Johnny must take that link out, okay? Like it has that in 1 hour, that has to link, because I'm paying that money out of my own cash. The exchanges aren't helping me here. If you do that, yeah, so you have to sign up to Frontrunners, sign up to either Blowfin or Pionex, deposit money into either, and I will literally pay you $150 into your account, which you can keep forever, no questions asked. Cool. So on that note, I hope you like this very, very, very juicy. So the Momo army here, guys. Momo bottomed yesterday. I don't know what you guys. Let me just have a look here. I know Momo bottomed yesterday at like, I think it was at like 7 million fully diluted, and then it doubled and it bottomed. And I really think that, I mean, I'm holding a position here, as you know. Yeah, so it went up to like $14 million yesterday, actually. But I think now with this whole market, yeah, it went up back to $15 million. I think now with this whole market collapse, it went back down again. Anyway, I will see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.